To rock, Esther. Okay. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Liz Farrell, Artistic Director of Painting, Drawing, and Printmaking, and our Artist in Residence program. Welcome to Anderson Ranch's Artist in Residence Slide Night. I want to welcome our virtual participants watching tonight as well. Before we begin, please silence your cell phones. Tonight we will hear from all 16 residents who are spending 5 weeks here at the ranch, working in the studios and building a fantastic community of artists. To begin, Anderson Ranch would like to acknowledge that our campus resides on the traditional ancestral territory of the Ute people, who've called the Roaring Fork Valley and beyond home for over 800 years. It's an honor to introduce our artists in residence, and we will start with our first resident. Thank you.
Hello. My name is Martha Galorn. I've come here for ceramics, but I also like to incorporate other materials in my work. Most of the work I do is really a representation of emotions or thoughts or memories, and not only those emotions, but also like the meta emotions that they evoke. So sometimes you'll have like a feeling about a feeling, a reaction to a reaction you've had. And I'm really interested in contradictory materials, kind of how you would find fear and attraction in the same space. So I'm really interested in kind of highlighting the different materials, how they would make somebody feel, like the imagining of how it would feel to touch things, kind of the idea of, do I want to touch something or not? And also, I take into consideration how it feels for me as I make them. And really kind of focused at the moment on making primarily ceramic sculptures that are designed in advance for the incorporation of alternative materials, possibly in the firing process, but usually afterwards. And I've been experimenting with a bunch of different materials. This one right here is actually a cast glass billet, and it's just solid glass. And for me, it's really fascinating. The black glass in particular is really fascinating. When you see it, you can't really identify what it's made out of. As I had previously had some pieces, they were almost little lumps that were excised from the mind to become their own individual like thoughts and feelings outside, with the hope that once they go outside of the mind, they don't return. So this is the first of a group where, as opposed to them being little solitary lumps, this one's almost like reaching back into itself to examine itself. And another thing I've been working on for a while, I do a bunch of daily black ink drawings. And this is kind of highlighting the direction I would hope to go to, where I'd like to work on a series of mixed media sculptures that are almost touching each other, but not quite, and kind of the tension in between them. So I brought a bunch of drawings to reference, and I'm also working on taking these like ink drawings and making them three-dimensional in a few ways. One by kind of using a 3D printer to print them so I can then have little reliefs, and also just by making solid ceramic sculptures of the pieces. That's it.
Hi, my name is Jessica Alasraki. I bring together my experience as an artist and an immigrant to dismantle misconception of Latinx identity by showing glimpses of intimate stories of everyday life. My paintings submerge the viewer in this radiant energy that challenges negative narratives by celebrating the people and the culture. I have an in-depth knowledge of design. I work in advertising for many years, and I use my fascination of color and pattern together with my identity to show unseen moments of immigrant households. I break traditional painting rules by providing very expressive marks and gestures traditional from abstract painting in my figurative works. I'm very interested in texture, oil paint texture, the way I apply it. I create my own visual language, and I also distort the anatomy and manipulate the perspective to create weird pictures that make my own collage aesthetics. Um, my work is about melancholy. Being an immigrant and growing in another country, like I think about my own childhood and also my kids' childhood. I was separated with my son for 3 years, so I like painting kids and child stories, and my kids come out in my paintings as well. I use photographic references of people in the subway, and I take them out of context in these imaginary settings that I create using color. And I create relatable scenes of people that come here for a better future. I talk about loyalty and family, and I challenge the viewer to think about their contributions of the resilient spirit. Thank you. Oh.
Good evening. It's lovely to be here. Before I begin, I'd just like to say really quickly that being at Anderson Ranch is a bit of a coming home for me. My mother, Marzette McClellan, was a ceramic artist here in the mid-1970s, and my sisters and I used to come and hang out here with her and watch her throw pots with Paul Solner on old kick wheels overlooking the valley. So I think her spirit is with me while I'm here. Also, my husband, who's here, is a fine furniture maker, a wonderful furniture maker who's done several workshops here, so it's kind of a family affair. My name is Margaret DeKoven. I'm a printmaker. I was originally introduced to printmaking by one of my teachers way back in high school, who turned me on to the work of Corita Kent, screen printing and relief printing. I then went on to be a fine arts major for a couple years in college until I left in favor of backpacking and hiking and river rafting and skiing in the mountains of Idaho and Colorado. When I returned to school, I studied biology and then pediatric medicine at the University of Colorado Medical School, and I practiced pediatrics for 38 years. I loved my work, but I always knew that I wanted to return to my original love of fine arts and specifically printmaking. I'm now a member of the Art Students League in Denver. It's a wonderful creative community. It's modeled after the Art Students League in New York City, and if you ever find yourself in Denver, it's a very cool place. You should check it out. My work consists of primarily monoprints, some relief printing, and some etching. My subjects are mostly Latina women, indigenous women, people in migration, and women in society. I like to depict figures in really elemental shape and color and keep things very simple. This is an example of that. This is a monoprint, fairly recent from last fall. It's called The Red Pants. It's 18 by 24 inches. This is another monoprint done around the same time last fall called Dos Chavas. It's also a monoprint, 18 by 24 inches. This is a much smaller image. It's a solar plate etching that I did a couple summers ago with Sue Omi at Omi Graphics in Steamboat Springs. This print is part of a series that I've been doing regarding people in migration. This print and a couple of other prints were donated and sold at auction in San Diego, with the proceeds going to an outfit called Border Kindness. They're the people who go hike out into the desert and leave jugs of water and food and hats and gloves for people who are making the dangerous journey across the desert to cross our southern border to get to the U.S. I'd like to do some more of this series. I may do some of it while I'm here, I'm not sure. I feel compelled because, as we know now, there's so many more displaced people in the world. I feel like I'd like to acknowledge them in some small way. If anybody would like to collaborate on something like this, let me know. I'd love to do it. This final print is a relief print. It's a woodblock monoprint that I did in 2020. It's called Midnight in New Mexico. It lives in London now. I'd like to do, while I'm here, some more relief printing, some carving, and maybe use that CNC machine and do some large-scale relief prints. So there you have it. That is a sample of my work. I'm very grateful to be here and amazed every day at the opportunities we have as artists in residence in Anderson Ranch. Thank you for everybody for being so warm and welcoming back to this magical place. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lisa Sacco, and I'm here in the furniture and wood area. I was formerly a photographer based in New York City, and when my kids went to college 2 years ago, I went back to RISD to complete an MFA, which I graduated from there in May. And my work aims to amplify material voice and to sort of, in some ways, the pieces try to engage people with the materials themselves. You're able to pick them up. They're not really connected. I rarely use any joinery or glues or fasteners. So I'm really just trying to get people to engage with the materials. Because I think that material is a forceful agent, and we seem to forget about it because our world is so surfaced. And I think by creating objects that people can pick up and touch and separate and experience the tactility of them and the hapticity, that we can sort of maybe think about where the materials came from and use them in a better way. Thank you. I think that's it. Oh yeah, it's another one. So generally, a lot of the pieces, again, this one is polished steel and quarter sawn walnut. But again, there aren't any fasteners. They just sort of connect together in some of them are CNC'd, some of them are with the blown glass piece. I blow the glass right over the steel. And so just what happens with material, sometimes it just happens and sometimes it's a little more calculated. But thank you.
Hello, everyone. Oh my God, my heart's pounding. Okay. Okay, so hello. I am here as a resident in the painting department. My work heavily concentrates on my own experience, and I sort of highlight emotional parts of my life, focusing on intimacy and performance, living, loving, the domestic space as well. Recently, I've really grown attached to the visual element of water. I sort of see water as kind of like a manifestation of emotions. It's always there. When we're sad, we cry. When we're angry, we sweat. When we need to reset or relax, we take a bath. It always seems to be, attached at the hip to us whenever we are in some sort of rising state of emotion. So I wanted to capitalize on that and bring that into my paintings. So I primarily work within the domestic space. I grew up in several different continents throughout my life, America, Europe, and Asia. And home was always sort of moving. Oh God, sorry. That's really close, okay. It was not something that I would be able to sit and stay in one place for, I haven't been able to say that, like, my childhood home and sort of thing. So I think home is something that I really wanted to recreate for myself throughout the spaces that I paint. And also looking back on this piece, especially called Pulse, figures are very important to me. I consider myself a figurative painter at heart, trying to emulate my own experience as a human being and those interactions that I've come across with my life. And this was a painting that I first started using bedsheet purposefully. The bedsheet and the pillowcases are all with clear gesso, using a bedsheet that I found at Savers. This is the first piece of a series that I'm actually continuing while I'm going to be here at Anderson. This is called My Attempt. It's based off of bordagi, which is a Korean traditional textile. I'm half Korean, and having only grown up in Western communities, I wanted to sort of reconnect with that part of myself that I hadn't been exposed to yet, except from my mom's side of the family. And so it's kind of interesting how I would try to find my way back into my own heritage through third-party sources like library books, and oh my God, I'm running out of time. And I said library books. But yeah, these are all made from found materials like bed sheets and old clothes, sort of keeping up with my family and having materials that have a past life. I use a lot of door frames, water, light sources in my work. Those are the three symbols that I use, that I sort of continue rearranging throughout paintings, and I want to continue doing that, sort of working on a language that I've created for myself within my work. And lastly, this is a painting I completed 2 weeks ago, where I've just been superimposing images that I have found that I think encompass important areas of my life, like my late grandmother and religion and my love for the color pink. Okay, that's done. Thank you.
Hello, good evening. My name is Freddy, and I always like to use my both last names. My first last name is Wamang, which means falcon, and the falcon is sacred bird in the Peruvian Andes, which also is a type of god. And my second last name, it is also a type of god that some important people in the past were being sacrificed, and they were taken to the high mountains, and then after many years they were taken into pilgrimage and into those villages, and they were like, considered gods. So I'm Freddy God. I want to, introduce my work chronologically, because it's important to learn where I come from and what things had been influenced my art. This is a series of paintings that I did in Peru, and the title of the series was called Peruvian Product, in Spanish, Producto Peruano. It basically talks about the trauma that we had been suffered during the 1980s in my hometown, Ayacucho, and where there was a revolutionary movement called Shining Path, where they started in my city, the same year where I was born, in 1980. But the worst thing happened when the government respond, through the army and through the police, and we, in the city, and especially people in the villages or in the countryside, were suffer a lot because they were basically almost exterminated for the army, because we were in the middle of both sides, and we didn't, and some people didn't speak Spanish. They were speaking only Quechua, and that was, I think, their. Yes. I also want to say about my training. I started my training at a very young age. I started at 9 years old. With master carvers in my hometown, Ayacucho, also, and in a pretty classical style, with a lot of ornamentation, a lot pay attention to the detail, like seeds, like flowers, like almost realistic. The inspiration, it came from those amazing altarpieces from churches that dated from the 1950s, 1970s, and this is also an exploration about dreams and stories that we were being told by my parents and as a kids. The title of this sculpture is called Skunk, and Quechua is Añas. This is my last public art that I did in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It's basically a whole tree trunk that I did in collaboration with 2 artists, and I executed like the most ornamental part of it, and it's Ionic capital. Everything's by hand, of course. And this is my last project that I'm working. It's a multi-year project. I was commissioned by the Pittsburgh International Airport. So I'm working right now on these large pieces. It's talking about connections, and yeah, I think that's it. Thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. I'm Morgan Lieberman, and I'm a documentary photographer from Los Angeles. I have the great honor of participating in this residency in the photography discipline as I continue making progress on my first photo book documenting senior lesbian partnerships across the US. This narrative began last year as I decided in my post-COVID existential crisis that I needed to work on something long-term that not only fulfilled me on a soul level, but was empathy-driven and focused on a topic that is often unseen. As I began researching past archives of older lesbian partnerships, I realized that it was practically non-existent on a visual level. I found some incredible oral history archives, but I had an eagerness to see the faces and hear the voices of this unique and resilient demographic. Where there has been continued evolving media representation of younger generations of the LGBTQ community in recent years, I felt that I had a newfound responsibility to honor the stories, the timelines, and the partnerships of lesbian women that have paved the way for so many of us and for human rights as a whole, decades before my own existence. What is so powerful about the participants being 62 years old and up is that so many of their coming out stories intersected with the civil rights movement, the second wave of feminism, the anti-war movement, and ultimately finding newfound strength and solidarity during the AIDS epidemic. I feel that this project captures often erased history, but also the beautiful, intricate nuances of love winning despite all odds. I know that was a really cheesy thing to say. The project is titled Hidden Once, Hidden Twice, to touch on the fact that the majority of queer people had to hide for their identity at some point in their life, and then because of societal stigmas are hidden again for being older. I have met with 34 different partnerships in 7 states so far, and I learned very quickly that the women in front of me never felt shame for who they are. Every partnership has taught me a tremendous amount about the rich network they have been a part of and the vulnerabilities they have experienced that make this narrative at its very core. Uh-oh. I'm so sorry. Was I done? Okay. That's still me. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm almost done. Yes, at their very core. Oh, okay. The rich network they have been a part of and the vulnerabilities they have experienced that make this narrative at its very core a humanizing one. They have graciously opened their doors to me with a loving openness that has brought so much joy, wisdom, and empowerment in my own life. Do I still have time? Okay. Where I will most likely spend the next 5 to 7 years working on the project, I plan to work on a book proposal for publishers during my residency, to design a newspaper of annotated stories, prepare prints for an upcoming portfolio review in Montana, and also explore several other artistic concepts outside of my photography practice that I can no longer push off because now I finally have the resources and the dedicated time to pursue them. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to share more about this ongoing narrative. And if you want to continue to follow my work, my Instagram is The Chromatic Sheep. I am grateful to your support and to the support of Anderson Ranch Art Center in this transformative experience of community and budding creativity. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ray Im, and yeah, let's just go. Okay, I just want to start from this one actually, want to go backward. So my background is photography, and then I did a lot of commercial photography as well, and then I major photography from my undergrad. So my practice like heavily focused on and then start from photography. Especially my practice is going to deadpan photography, which you probably don't know. I just explained a little bit. Deadpan photography is one of the genre in photography, and then like going to the characteristic of a cool, detached, and then very objective style of photography, just documenting the scene without the artist, the emotional, without artist emotions. So I basically making my object to photograph it. So that was my beginning of approaches. And then this is one of the work, then photographed all different stages of ceramics object from bone dry, bisque fire, and then glazed, and then final like process, and then all photoshopped, and then printed out on transparent like film. So this is like similar way, but so from my background, there's no artist around me, and then I have no like artist or art education back then. So I want to inform about the information like hidden behind the making process. So showing all different stages, and then having some Korean inspired furnitures, and then showing it. So yeah, this is like recent my solo show pieces. So there's like small ceramic pieces you can see, but still I am applying photography approaches like creating frames, and then just repeat those frames. That becomes the scene. And also, even though there's no photo, as you get into the pieces and then see through the frames. And this is different objects, still very photography heavily engaged with making frames with the ceramics object, and then collaborating with different materials. That's it.
Hi, I'm Amy Ritter. I'm here in the sculpture department. My work primarily revolves around my practice of archiving mobile home parks across the United States. I've been doing that for about 8 years now. A lot of the work that I make is in series. So this is called the cinder block wall series, and this was done in Franconia in Schaefer, Minnesota. This is probably like the 5th iteration of this project and the largest one to date. My practice is usually to arrive at a location and then scout out all the local mobile home parks and then find a specific house or community that I want to work with. So then these are pretty much large Xerox toner prints that then get wheat pasted to the surface of the mortared cinder block walls and obviously footed into the ground. Let's see. I also have been making some films or videos lately, so this is one of the most recent ones I've made. It's about 15 minutes long, and a lot of the work I make is also very personal and talks about my own upbringing of growing up in a mobile home park in eastern Pennsylvania, where my dad still lives. And so this is, like I said, a 15-minute video, and it has candles affixed to the top of a cardboard cutout of my parents' mobile home. And this was filmed in the back of their mobile home. And it talks a lot about, the American dream and, housing affordability, but also the fears that come along with living in this form of housing, which would be, so over the course of this video, it's me lighting the candles, and then the candles slowly start to burn, and then they start the house on fire, and then the house burns to the ground, which is a huge fear of people living in mobile home parks because they are so close to each other. And then let's see. So this is another series I work on that's called the Mobile Home Window Series. And these are all made on OSB plywood, which is a lot of the materials I use, like cinder blocks and plywood, all relate back to the materials of manufactured housing, which is a home that sits on top of, often on top of cinder blocks and on top of gravel. And then the flooring is often made of OSB plywood, which is like a stranded material. And then this is also like a Xerox photographic print that's then adhered to the surface and gives that texture of the plywood coming through. But then I play a lot. This is actually my father, Dean Ritter, who's in this, who is a huge icon in my work because he has it just, sort of represents this like baby boomer generation that grew up with that phrase, the American dream. And so I explore that a lot through him and my conversations I have with him, and then through these images of me going into mobile home parks and photographing them and getting the reflection of the space that you can see. You have this sort of voyeurism that you get to look into these spaces that are often privatized and hidden in place. So my goal is to bring more visibility to the people living there, through interviews, documenting them, videography and audio collection, and then through all of that collection, I make these series. Thank you.
Hey everybody, my name's Katie Chin. I'm an interdisciplinary artist living in New York City now. I'd say my practice these days is more rooted in sculpture and installation, although I really enjoy projects that require some participatory element as well, working with my audience. This piece is called Shift, and it's a site-specific metal installation where these modular boxes, there's this repetition that kind of mimics the homogeneous modularity we see in modern capitalism with like Amazon boxes looking all the same, or the experiences and products we have kind of seeming like they're fixed and homogeneous, but in reality, things are shifting and changing a little bit more subtly than at first glance. So if you get up close to these boxes, there's moments of emergence where boxes are coming out of the ground or starting to intersect with each other, or creating these like porous moments with the architecture where it's like feels like it's pushing up into the ceiling. And so my practice in general thinks about this change of social norms, and especially with economic and social formation. I recently graduated from Parsons this past May, and I was there during this historic labor strike that happened with the part-time faculty. So I made this piece reflecting on that. And at the bottom, there's these archives of different people in the community at the new school that shook hands between a slab of clay. And this is called We Are the Safety Net. If you remove any of the piles of this archive of handshakes or the legal pad that is like holding the weight in the center, this entire sculpture falls apart. So I was thinking about precarity and just the relationships we have as individuals in our greater community. I've also been thinking a lot about, like, I'm kind of an econ nerd in some ways, and I've been made this series called Hidden Abodes when I was diving deeper into like Marx and Marx-adjacent theory, and I've created this series of vignettes that all made of these like, slipcast piggy banks. This is one where these two are on opposite sides of the room from each other, thinking about incentives, whether they be sticks or carrots, but this larger series is very absurd and strange. Some of them are very peculiar and install them in bathrooms and other places. But wrestling with these like very complex economic themes that I was starting to get to understand and creating these object forms. And then while I'm here, this is not a finished piece. We're just, bringing some prototypes to you so we can have conversations while we're here at the ranch. I'd like to work on this piece with these wrenches that you slip cast the wrench, and then once you take it out of the mold, if you like vibrate it again, you can start manipulating them and creating new forms and create this thing that usually when you slip cast clay, it's like very rigid and brittle. But by intervening, you can start to create some change and queer the form. So I'm hoping to do something with these. I'm not entirely sure yet, but I like the wrench as like the saying, like throw a wrench in something. Like it's a tool that an individual uses to, it sort of implies that there's like a larger machine or a larger system that you would either use a wrench to fix or you throw a wrench in something. It's usually a political phrase of like trying to destroy something and like ruin a system. So I like this tool as like a, just thinking about the ways that we can either like change or fix or have relation to like economics and the systems that kind of govern how we interact with one another. And then this other project I'm hoping to explore, right now I'm calling them like objects, well, I don't know the working title, but it's like thinking about objects of domination in states of collapse. So what I'd like to do is take this, I made this hamster wheel, and while I'm here, create like the metal armatures to go on top of it, but then create versions of other objects that like this, maybe some barbed wire or like prison fencing, that then go through states of collapse, and then once they're fired, they almost become like these ceramic wall drawings. So we'll see where that goes, but those are things I'm thinking about at the moment. Thanks.
Hello. I'm Soen, and I'm in sculpture, and I make objects that have a desire to depend on a human connection or human care. And this one, I guess, it has a motor that circulates the system, or circulates fluids from one bulb to the other bulb. But one of them is defective, so it requires another person to, or a performer to manually eject and input the fluid to keep it circulating. This one is moving. It uses like a hydraulic system to pump, inject air into the sculpture or object, making it seem like it's breathing. And the inputs of the data are taken by two people's heartbeats and the wave pattern, and also the jellyfish data. Yeah. And this was a part of my thesis work, and it was called Well, it had a performance that was part of the installation, and basically two people were handling the sculptures and rewiring the circuits, and it's supposed to be that the sculptures depend on the hydration and the touch of the people, but I guess in actuality it's just very artificial mode of care, and I guess my practice is rooted in the pretending of like these objects potentially being alive, and kind of like the false hope of becoming itself. But yeah, I remember the title is called Transfusion Loop. And the procedures of careless caretakers. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Cher. I'm in the painting program, or I'm a painting resident. So I was a graphic designer for 7 or 8 years, and I had a son when I was 16. When he turned 18 over the pandemic, I quit my job to paint full time. And I initially, let's see which other images I have here. Yeah. I initially started exploring a collection of slides that I'd inherited from my grandfather, who was a photographer. And part of having a child so young, my childhood being over before it kind of, yeah. Identity and my history and my experience of myself was kind of a moving target. So I wanted to connect with my family and reflect on their experiences. I never got to know these people. I never got to know their love story firsthand. So spending time with them was really important to me. And when my son moved out, I started to go through sort of a deconstruction, because my entire adult identity had been formed around taking care of him or trying to survive through raising him. And I know that this happens to lots of people. It's not extraordinary, but in my experience, there was a lot of introspection that was required to get through this. So I was thinking more about family and deconstruction and religion, spirituality. And this kind of drew me into thinking about how time, this is maybe a departure, but it drew me into thinking about how time is, like all of time is happening all at once if it's nonlinear, and that we can be experiencing things that our ancestors experienced through even like generational trauma, our DNA, our memories, our dreams, our subconscious, all that stuff. And I was thinking about the presence of like ancestor and even past selves, people I've been, people I've known. This one I jokingly call a happy painting about death. Like everybody at this table is dead, or this is like the flowers from the funeral. But there are these like crystallized moments in all these photographs that I collect that are so beautiful, and somehow combining them, like a spirit sort of emerges for me. And this is a progress shot of a painting that I developed a little bit further, but this is the one that kind of kicked it all off with these combined images. And you probably can't tell from here, but it's depicting some guys in a barrack. I think it was probably during the Korean War or something. There's a connection to, my personal, like my grandfather and his service there, and all of that, but they're eating ice cream sandwiches, and these like fleeting, impermanent moments that we've all experienced in our day-to-day, like they go all back across time. And that's the type of stuff I like to paint about. Thanks.
Hi everyone, I'm Mariposa, and I'm here for the ceramics residency. This is the first time I played with clay, and at the same time I was really obsessed with fashion and garments and the body, and I was really stubborn and I wanted to make the clay into clothes. And this piece is kind of like a bulletproof vest, and I was collaging it with a daily terrain that I was very familiar with, one that is very like heavily militarized, one that I cross daily to go to school and to work. And then I was still obsessed with this idea of putting clay into garments, and so I thought maybe using it as accessories. And if you're not familiar with burnout in ceramics, is when you dip cotton or organic fibers into, what I did was porcelain, and these were bows, and then they were fired, and you're left with a skeleton of it and so I attached it to a garment, and at this time I was collaborating with other trans artists, and I really thrived in these kind of settings of self-expression that I learned through nightlife and collaboration and community, which was really important to my practice. And then this is just a toilet paper holder out of metal. One of the first project I ever made, and I love making furniture, and I would love to keep exploring it alongside with ceramics. Yeah. And then this is my latest series of ceramics. It was a whole series called Amor, Pasión y Putería, which is passion, love, and like hoe-ness or hogatry. I don't know how to say it. But so at this time, I'm like reimagining different landscapes, different terrains, and playing with like transformation and animals. And some of these figures are more exposing themselves. So if you look at a 360, you would see the genitals under the skirt. For this one, I was thinking a lot of mourning, some of my past, death, and life. And you've seen this one in my little pictures, but yeah, just from my own experience, it's very personal to me. So yeah, that's really it, y'all. Thank you.
Hello. Okay, we got to go to the link. So I'm going to show works from the beginning. I can talk while this play. From the beginning of my art practice and recent works. So when I started making performance-based videos, I was making a series called study series, and they're short video works. Each one is between 10 seconds to 4 minutes, and this work I continue to develop. So most of them I source a movement clip that either I found on the Internet Archive or I document myself, and the movement there's a wide range. Some of them are come from sports, some of them come from dance archives, and some of them are maintenance movements. So I try to select from a wide range of movements to study, and the impulse is to reenact the movements on different forms and create a study of it. And this is the most recent study I've done. So this work I started in 2017, and I continue to make them. And in the meantime, I made other works, so it's kind of an on and off series. But for me, this is like a really good exercise. So it's something I do to keep my practice going. And in this most recent study, I reenacted the ice dancing routine by Torvill and Dean from the Olympics ice dancing. And I did it, I collaborated with a dancer, Jade Mance, and we recreated the routine on our hands. And we did perform this live. This is the first study we performed live at the Judson Church last March. And we incorporated like a live video mixing. So we did the reenactment live, and someone was remixing the video and the live feed camera in the background. So that's similar to what you'll see in the background. Okay. Oh, sorry. And the next one is also, skip this. Oh, I thought there's another video. Let's see. Oh yeah. Okay, can we go to this video? So in January last year, I did one reenactment of the, it was called Time and Space Symposium, I think, which was happened in 1978. And so I was invited to do a performance at this venue in Brooklyn. So what I did was I reenacted the panel, which consisted of different art critics, writers, and dancers, and video artists at the time. And what I was interested in was kind of exploring the archive, and especially this sort of undertone of Orientalist thinking in the American avant-garde art tradition. So I'll just let this play. There was still this idea with us that the Orient was not foreign. So the person talking is supposed to be John Cage. Everyone's wearing a mask on their head. I kept coming back to Western thinking to find the same idea in it. Oh, yeah, that was the clip. Okay. And then I have, how much time do I have? I'll just talk about one more photo. And the other pieces I've done recently, I spend a lot of time on the Lower East Side community in Manhattan. I play table tennis every day with the senior citizens. So eventually I started to develop a dance piece with some of the people that I play table tennis with. And this piece I called Daily Diversions, which referring to the kind of the daily practice where we meet every day and just practice forms. And my friend made us this beautiful table which can come apart during the piece. It has a sculptural element, and we developed choreography around the table. Yeah, okay, that's it.
Hi, my name is Sean Bitters, and I'm here in the printmaking area, which is over with painting. So I'm going to start by kind of telling you an absurdist, beautiful story. I was raised in Utah, raised Mormon, and I was taught that when God made the world, the Mormon creation story is very much like the Christian one, but with a little difference, where when God made the world, we all helped him. And when I was growing up in Utah, like, you know, the mouth of all these canyons. I'd spent so much time up in the canyons hiking and swimming and rock climbing, and I loved that landscape so much. And the story that I used to help explain why I loved it so much was maybe I helped make it, which is insane, but it was this beautiful idea. And when I came out and left Mormonism, my story for the world vanished. And so all of a sudden I'm faced with this new world where, like, how do I engage with this? And so my work since then has been about how we use story to connect to landscape. What are the stories, the narratives that we create in order to understand our place? And so in doing that, I've been creating these, well, some people in the print world might call them print installations, where they're almost like sets, where from the front, when you first approach them, they seem immense and large and overwhelming and maybe slightly dangerous, and then you walk off to the side and they reveal themselves to be fiction. So if you want to just hit this video, you can kind of see details. This is the latest installation that I did with a collaborator, Matthew Willie Garcia, and you'll see his projections play out on the surface of the work. This is about 20 feet by 10 feet-ish. And this was at Wasaic Project's for their summer show this past summer. And you can kind of see from the side how, you know, these are just thin pieces of UPO with, it's a monotyping, screen printing monotyping technique, so it's like in between painting and sculpture and printmaking. And this is site-specific. We kind of adjusted it for this space, this old mill space. We can go to the next one. Oh, actually, no, let's just skip ahead to the next image. Part of this journey of trying to understand, like, you know, how we use language and stories to connect to a landscape. There's another old story in Mormon scripture, in a very specific Mormon scripture, where the earth is crying and she is upset with how mankind has treated her through their sins and whatnot. And this story has stuck with me because I'm like, this is remarkable that the earth is talking. Like, in this moment, this earth is like a voice, and she is complaining. And so I started thinking about, like, well, if the earth can talk, what would the earth have to say? And then who gets to decide what the earth has to say? And like this whole absurdist journey that we take about what the earth needs and wants. And so I started to take, recently, about 5 years ago, I started to take these old kind of American landscape paintings, starting with the Hudson River School, and then lately I've been kind of obsessed with N.C. Wyeth, the illustrator. This is one of his paintings called Island Funeral. And I've gotten rights to the paintings. I print them out, high resolution, and then I erase elements, and then I build my own landscape into it. But then these weird stone things, there's actually one stone for each letter of the alphabet. So you actually can decode them, and it allows the earth to speak back. And this idea of the American virgin wilderness, this narrative we have for ourselves for Manifest Destiny and the pristine wilderness, and all the fictions that go along with that. So when people see these things, they think, oh, wow, you're an amazing painter. No, I did not paint this. I drew the volcanoes, but you know, hey. And then these works also kind of, when I'm exhausted from making large installations and print series, I just simply draw these fictionalized landscapes that seem to be behaving oddly. So thank you very much for your time.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for sharing your work. I'm learning a lot from all of you, and I feel like I have so many conversations and so many questions I have for you all. And I'm Yuxin Wu, and this is one of my work titled Untitled, lowercase our side. And the material I use is borrowed object and stolen power. And so I'm the first generation immigrant, Taiwanese immigrant in the United States. I've been here for 10 years, and during pandemic, I witnessed a lot of human right movement. And so for this project, I insert the rocking chair underneath the authority line. During pandemic, I went on march, and when we marched down to Chicago District 19, and a lot of us was chanting and asking for justice. And there were like a line of policemen. They were like standing behind the police barricade. And one of the policemen, he said, "I'm sorry this is happening, and I'm sorry I have to be here, but trust me, I'm with you." And at that moment, the police barricade was in between us and the police. And so it got me to think about how do I open up a negotiate conversation pocket in the space. And so that's why it brought out me to think about the grandma's rocking chair. In Taiwan, policemen often refers to people's nanny, like a people's babysitter. So when something happened, we call the policeman. And so that's why I combined two images together. And the next work is titled Jolt. Jolt is a wooden structure that the interior size is 6 feet by 6 feet. And so it was like a banging in the gallery space back and forth. And we can check this, yeah. Yeah, this is something I make as well. Yeah, we can play it. Yeah, thank you. I have the other video, the next one. This is titled The Ear. So in my practice, I think about boundary, and I think about how we switch our perspective, how we switch our body position, how I can trying to see your perspective. So the ear was made with 365 plants, and it's a book-like, yeah. And so when I'm reading the first page, I'm able to see the page 2, page 3, page 25. And by the action of flipping, I hope to activate the perspective changes, and then trying to ask him for some empathy and understanding. And I think that's it. Thank you so much.